Greetings, everybody, and welcome to step 2 of the two-step listing approach. Now, let's preface this a little bit and set it up. We've already done our first step. We've gotten a lead. We visited the property. We've spoken with one of the owners. Typically, it's whoever's home at that moment. It could be the wife or the husband. It could be both, but typically it's just one of them. And we've built rapport. We've taken copious notes. We've had them help us measure rooms. We've qualified them and what their motivation is for making the move. We've also developed the mood of the move with them in terms of how soon they need to move, where they're moving to, how important it is to get the job done, and so on. So now, step 2 is the actual listing presentation itself. So what we've done, we've visited the home, we've gone back, we've done our research, we've looked at all the comparables. We have, in fact, not only just looked them up on the computer, on our MLS system, but we've also visited the comparable properties, as many or all of them as we can. And because it's very important that you know more about what's going on in the marketplace than that seller knows. And I'll tell you right now, if they've been thinking about selling, they've also done some research on their own. And as you know, all the information is readily available for each and every one of them to gather their data. So we need to know more than they know. What we've done as well is we've printed out 3 copies of the listing agreement, all pages, the comparable market analysis, all pages, and an absorption report, which is a way of showing them, based on the past performance of the last 3, 6, 12 months of homes in their price range and in their area, how many have sold, how many are available. That will tell you and tell them what they can expect in terms of an absorption based on the price that they arrive at this evening. Okay, so on the listing agreement, everything needs to be filled out, all the disclosure forms, everything else completely filled out, with a few exceptions. And what I like to leave blank are a few areas on the listing agreement where I can use those areas and questions to completely fill out the agreement, as well as get some minor yeses, which lead up to the major yes, which is hiring me to help them sell their home. Okay, so our appointment's at 7 o'clock. We arrive at 6:54 or 5 or 7 or whatever, just a little ahead of time. We park across the street always, if possible. There's a small strategy there, and that is that, first of all, never park in their driveway. For a lot of reasons, but especially if your car might happen to leak a little oil or something like that, you don't want to offend them. But you want to park across the street, because I guarantee you when the appointment's at 7, they're peeking through the window anticipating your arrival. So you park across the street, take out your camera, take a few photos, and right at 7 o'clock you come up and you knock on the door. And you knock enthusiastic. Don't ring the doorbell. What does it sound like every time? Ding dong, right? So knock enthusiastically, like you're happy to be there and excited about being there. The seller opens the door and you say, "Hi, Mr. Smith, Mike Fuller here. We had an appointment this evening at 7 o'clock. Look at your watch. It's right at 7 o'clock. May I come in?" They say, "Sure, come on in." And another little tip I will tell you is to ask them, or just automatically remove your shoes. The reason for that is twofold. One, certainly if it's raining outside or inclement weather, you don't want to track in a bunch of dirt and stuff into their home. But number 2, it shows respect for them, and it kind of creates a nicer feeling. So you've met with Mrs. Seller, let's say, earlier in the day, and now it's Mr. Seller, who you hadn't met yet. And you ask him, you know, "Mr. Seller, do you mind taking a few minutes and showing me through your home? And I know I saw the home earlier today with Mrs. Seller, but I'd like to get your perspective and what you feel are some of the benefits that you've enjoyed while living here at your home." So what this does is it kind of slows things down. It helps you build rapport with the other seller, because if Mrs. Seller is sold on you already, he's going to have sort of arms crossed and not, he's going to be the king of the castle, so to speak, and nobody's going to like pull the wool over his eyes, and maybe they did over his wife's eyes. Who knows? Whatever. So you walk through the home, you take some more notes, you ask a few questions, you look for common denominators. Maybe he plays golf, you play golf, you notice a picture or a trophy or golf clubs or whatever, and you say, hey, I see you play golf, and you build rapport. And then when you come back and you say, after the tour, and you arrive at the kitchen table, because after all, earlier in the day on your first step approach, of the two-step approach, your first step, you've asked that the kitchen table be cleared so that you can sit there and spread out in an organized fashion all your paperwork. You never want to sit in the living room, and you always want to have both sellers across from you, versus one at one end, one at the other end of the table, and you're trying to talk with one of the sellers while the other seller is, they could be doing all kinds of sign language. Who knows, like, let's get rid of this guy, or hey, our favorite TV show's on in about 20 minutes, let's hurry this up, or whatever. You want their full attention, you want them right across from you. Another small thing, but very important. Okay, so now, the first thing that I want you to do and say is, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, first of all, thank you so much for having me over this evening to discuss the opportunity of helping you with your real estate needs. Most of my day today was consumed with doing research to try to arrive at a fair market value for your home. Now, do you mind taking a minute and verifying the accuracy of these details? And then what you do is you hand them a copy of the listing agreement first, not the market analysis. You wait on that. So you hand them a copy of the listing agreement, completely filled out with a few exceptions. And as they are looking at it, they may respond in a number of different ways. And one of the ways that I hear often is, hey, Mike, we really haven't decided to list our home with you yet. Why did you fill out all this paperwork? And I would say, I really appreciate that, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, and I like to organize my thoughts, and I do that on the paperwork, and that way I don't forget anything, especially something that might cost you time or money. By the way, would you want us to call for an appointment before showing your home, or should we just stop by? They'll say, well, Mike, we'd like you to call first. Great, let me make a note of that. And I take my pen and I write it right on the listing agreement in that place that I left blank on purpose. And again, if they didn't stop you prior to that, they may stop you there and say the same thing, and you respond the same way. And then you hit them with another question. By the way, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, would a 30 or a 60-day closing date and time of possession better fit your needs? They'll pick one. You write that down on the agreement. I also liked to leave blank some of the not fixtures, but say a refrigerator or something like that, and ask them, are there any, first of all, I'd ask, are there any fixtures that you are not going to be wanting to leave with the property? They'll say, what do you mean? And I'll say, well, like light fixtures or any particular plants outside, or anything at all that you plan to take with you. Most of the time it's no. They're willing to leave everything. And then you say, now, on the personal property, which would include your refrigerator and washer and dryer and those kinds of items, would you plan on taking those with you, or do you think we should include them within the sale? And you'll get a 50-50, we're going to take them, or, let's go ahead and leave them. And again, you write, whatever the answer is, you write it down on the agreement. So now you've gone over the listing agreement, you've assured that everything's accurate. Of course, prior to that, you've had them sign the agency acknowledgement here in Oregon anyway. We have an agency agreement that basically spells out, who you represent. And it's not a binding document, but it is something that we need to do right up front with a seller or a buyer, and let them know that should they hire us, that we will represent them, and also go over, orient them to what might also happen. Like, you may find the buyer yourself, maybe somebody in your office. That's known as sort of like a dual agency situation, or more likely, which happens 90+% of the time, typically, and that would be that a realtor from another office would bring a buyer that's interested in their home, and then you only represent the seller, and they would only represent the buyer. Okay, so you've gone over that with them, and now you say, again, you know, most of my day-to-day was taken up doing research to help us arrive at a fair market value for your home, because one of the main factors that determines whether or not a property will sell is arriving at a fair market value. Do you mind taking a minute and let's go over this together? Now you hand them copies of your market analysis, and make sure that you're very accurate with it. That there's no fluff and hype and puff in there, because the last thing you want is an overpriced listing. You know, you might be happy to get a listing, but that's not the goal. The goal tonight is to get the listing, but also to get it at the right price with the right motivation. So as you're going through the market analysis, they may say things like, hey Mike, we know this home up the street. It's Mr. and Mrs. Jones's home, and our home is much nicer than this home. And then you might say, you know, I certainly agree with you. Your home is one of the nicest homes on the you know, in your area. But let me ask you a question. When you did all the nice improvements to your home and got it all the way that you like it, were you thinking about selling your home when you were doing these improvements, or do you just like quality things? And they'll typically say, well, no, we were this is the way we like things, and we weren't thinking about selling it at the time. So, you know, and then I would say something like, you know, as much as I'd like to add up what you paid for the home and all the improvements that you've made and arrive at a fair market value, that's really not how the real estate market works. And what I mean by that is that prices are determined really by what a buyer is willing to pay, what a seller is willing to sell for. And so even though you may have the nicest home in the area, buyers, especially today, are ultimately aware of what's going on in the marketplace. In fact, it's their realtor's job to let them know what has sold, what it is sold for, how long it was on the market, what the original price was, what the eventual price was, and so on. So they will have access to these facts of record, just as we do this evening. And so as we go through these, I want you to realize that in order for us to get a home on the market at the right price and sold in a reasonable period of time, as you mentioned earlier to me, you'd like to get the home sold within 60 days. Isn't that right? Yes, Mike, that's right. We would like to do that. I'd say, okay, great. You know, unfortunately, many real estate salespeople are mainly concerned with getting a listing and will tell a seller whatever they want to hear just in order to get their sign in the front yard. And I don't believe that's fair, because the fact is you do want to get the home sold within 60 days. And so I feel it's my duty. In fact, I had a choice before I came over this evening. I had a choice to, either tell you the truth and maybe disappoint you this evening, or to tell you what you want to hear and have you feel great tonight, but then be irritated with me 30 days, 60 days, 90 days down the road when your home hasn't sold and we've lost what I call first-time exposure in the marketplace. Oftentimes they'll say, well, okay, so what's first-time exposure? Well, what that means is, I can visualize a loaf of bread in the store. When it comes out of the bakery and it's fresh on the shelf, it's a fresh loaf of bread, and it's much more appealing. Same situation with a home, and like with bread, a couple of days later, it'll be on sale if it hadn't sold the first day it was baked, and it might be on sale and be called, day-old bread or whatever, and you get a discount on it. Same kind of thing can happen in real estate. So if you price your home a little bit above the market, even in today's competitive world, you may find that we lose that first time exposure, that first 30 to 45 days that your home is on the market. It's being exposed to all the qualified, motivated, ready to go buyers who may see it, may like it, but may just sort of put it on the back burner for the moment because they have many choices to choose from in the marketplace. Therefore, if they feel your home is a little overpriced, they're going to pass on it for now, thinking they can come back to it later if they don't find something better. So, however, on the flip side of that, if your home is priced properly, and as the buyer is going through it, and believe me, they'll know pretty much right off the bat if they have a good feeling about your home, and then if it's priced properly, they'll be more likely to want to jump on the property before anyone else does, and you'll be more likely to get what you're asking for the home. Does that make sense? Of course, they'll typically say, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, great. Now, let's go over what I call the 3 areas that you need to really focus on this market analysis. And there's really 4. Let's start with the first 3. And the first one is, darn it, my phone's ringing. To the owners, and we're going over the market analysis together, I will point out, that these are the active properties. This is place number 1 we need to focus. This is your competition, let's say, of similar properties on the market that a buyer might have to choose from, including yours. Number 2, this particular area here are the homes that were on the market for an extended period of time and they did not sell, and we call these expired listings. And then number 3, and the most important area that we want to look at, well, there's 2. Number 3 is the sale pending homes that have a sale written and accepted but haven't closed yet. So we don't know what the price they've accepted is, we just know the listed price. And then number 4, the area that is most important to us on this list of the facts of record is the properties, or are the properties that have actually sold over the last 60 to 90 days that would be considered comparable properties to yours in the eyes of an appraiser. Which, again, when we sell our home, we need to have 3 people that we please. 1, you, of course; 2, the buyer; and 3, the bank. And the way they're pleased with the sale is via the appraisal. So no matter what we sell your home for, if it won't appraise based on the other comparable sales, we could lose the sale 3 weeks down the road because it did not appraise for the value that we had sold it for. So we don't want that to happen, right? I mean, that would be horrible. So let's take a look at these and go over them carefully. Now, at this point, the seller may be very fidgety, concerned, because typically the price that is displayed on your market analysis is not going to be the price that they had in mind. And oftentimes it's lower than what they were thinking. So this is where the challenge comes in getting a great listing, and you need to know what to say and how to say what to say in order to accomplish your goal, which is to get a saleable, well-priced property for sale. So as you're going through this, you may hear things like, "Hey, Mike, we know this home up the street. Our home's much nicer than this." At which point you have a little discussion about, yes, it very well is or may be much nicer than this home, you mean the Mr. and Mrs. Jones's home, right? The one that has the green shag carpet. I understand that, and you have brand new, beautiful Berber or whatever kind of carpet is in vogue today, and understand that, but let's go ahead and look at what really is important, and these are the sold properties. So, and as you mentioned, you'd like to get the home sold within 60 days. Now, we have kind of 3 price values we can choose from. We can choose a 30-day, a 60-day, or a 90-plus day price for your home. I would not suggest that we choose the 90+ day because, again, we're going to lose that first-time exposure. If you'd like to get the home sold for the most money, you want to get it sold within the first 30 to 45 days. The reason for that is because, again, that's that first-time exposure period where you've got the most qualified buyers looking at your property that are the most ready to go and that have already seen other properties but haven't found one they really like. Yet if they like yours and it's priced well, they're likely to jump on it immediately and give you close to what you're asking or what you're asking. And sometimes, in some cases, we'll have multiple offers on a property, and a seller will end up actually getting more than they're asking. So, which one of those three do you feel you would like to be in? And then wait for them to answer. And again, they're going to be disappointed with the price that you have. So let's say your market analysis shows that their home should be priced under $250, somewhere in the $240 to $245 range, and they're in their mind thinking $260, $270 for their property. So I'm going to fast forward through a lot of conversation that's going to be taking place just because, for the sake of time on this video, let's get to the most important part, which is them saying something like, Mike, we see that you've done a lot of research here and that there's, that these properties that you've shown us, but we're not willing to sell our home for anything less than $270,000. And I would look at them and I'd say, well, I understand how you feel, and if you don't mind helping me out a little, because maybe I missed something, why do you feel that your home will sell for that much above what the market is telling us it will sell for? Could you please share with me what maybe I might have missed? And then they'll talk about the things that they've done and why their home's nicer than anyone else's, and on and on and on. And you just listen and you take notes and you agree, or you really never want to disagree with them. You just want to agree with them. Repeat back to them what they're saying so they know you're listening, and then go to the next close, which is this. Here's what I would say. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, let's put price on the shelf for just a moment. Let me ask you a question. You mentioned earlier you'd like us to call for an appointment before showing the home versus just stopping by. So let me ask you, are you guys home most of the time? And they'll say, well, no, we work, or this or that. And you say, well, have you ever seen one of these? And you hold up a lockbox. And they will say yes or no, it doesn't matter. And you say, well, do you know how these work? Well, not really sure. Well, let me show you. Do you have a spare key? Have them take a spare key off their key ring or whatever and hand it to you, and open up your lockbox and say, here's how it works. And we all have a special code that we use, and these are computerized now, so nobody, even if we lost our lockbox key, so to speak, no one else could really use it or could use it at all unless they knew our code. And plus, the lockbox will record every time the property has been shown, so that I can follow up with realtors in case they may not have left a card or something, right? So let me show you how it works. And you open it up, and you take the key, and you put it in the drawer, and you close it. And you say, it's rather secure, isn't it? And then they'll agree, and then you leave that alone. You put the lockbox on the table, and now you have their key, and you're halfway home to getting the listing, right? So then you say, about 40 to 50% of our exposure to any particular property we have on the market comes via signage. Where do you think, first of all, there's a couple types of sign that you can get with me, and one is a stake sign, a simple on a stake sign in front of your house, or what a lot of people prefer, and what I like better, and it really shows up better, is a colonial sign where there's a post where the sign hangs from, so that it's easier to see and recognize that your home is for sale. Which one do you think you'd like? Oh, we'd like the post. Okay, cool. Let me make a note of that. Write that down. And then as you get closer and closer to now the entire listing agreement is filled out except for the price. And you then say, you know, because your home is one of the nicer homes in the area, and I do believe that it's a very saleable property, I'd be willing to, you know, as the market analysis shows us, we should be around 245. I'd be willing to start at 249,950 with the you know, agreement in place with you and I that if we're not getting the activity that we want, that we agree to lower our price within 30 days to between 240 and 245. And they'll resist and they'll say, oh, I don't know, we really can't do that, and this and that. And I would then reiterate to them, you know, again, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, many listing agents are mainly concerned with taking, you know, a listing. And we'll tell or agree with whatever the seller wants, even if it's not in the seller's best interest, just so they can get a sign on the property and get that agreement and move on. But then what they'll do is they'll beat you up later. You know, the worst sticker on a sign that you could ever have, and I'll never use one personally because I don't believe in them. And there's one sticker that is horrible, and they'll say, well, what is that? And I'll say, well, the one that says price reduced. You might as well just put a sticker up that says desperate, because in the buyer's mind, they're like, oh, price reduced. You know, that one's been on the market a while. You know, they were overpriced to begin with. Maybe they're getting desperate at this point. So let's, if we like the property, they may say to themselves, you know, let's go ahead and make them a lowball offer, see what happens. And that's the last thing you and I want. And number two, we don't want to get into a ping pong match with each other of me saying, hey, you know, we need to reduce the price, and you saying back to me, well, Mike, how do you know? We haven't had any offers yet. And I can then say, well, we haven't had any offers yet because it's priced too high, and we go back and forth, and it's really a waste of time, and it doesn't create that kind of a confidence that you really want to have in your real estate representative. Do you agree with that? Yes. Okay, well, based on that and based on the facts, I think we should start around 249,950. What do you think? Okay, Mike, I guess we can do that, but we're not coming down a penny. I said, great. I'd write it down on the listing, 249,950. Turn the listing agreement around and say, and point to the signature line and say, with your approval, never use the word signature, with your approval right here on the paperwork, we can get started tonight getting you happily moved. That's when you shut up. That's your final closing question. The first one that talks loses. So you just be quiet and you look down at the paper and you maybe look back up at them and smile, and typically they'll just go ahead and sign it. But sometimes you'll get a couple of other objections. One might be, hey Mike, I see you've put 6% in here. We're not going to pay 6%. You know, a realtor up the street, you know, or a realtor around the corner, whatever, said they'd do it for 3%. That's when I might say, well, I can understand that, but let me ask you a question. If a realtor is so willing to give up their income in order to pay their mortgage, pay their car payment, feed their kids, and do all the things they need to do with their income, how willing do you think they'll be to give up your income and your net proceeds on your home when it comes time to negotiate? You would want a strong negotiator for your property, wouldn't you? Okay, so that's typically not too hard to overcome. But number two, they may say, well, you know, I see that you've got us this agreement for 6 months. You know, we don't want to be tied up for 6 months. I say, you know, I certainly understand that. I also need to let you know that since the average marketing time right now is about 4 months, and we're not pricing it within the market analysis range that is suggested by the facts of record, I need to have enough gas in my tank to get through the desert. They'll look at me like, what do you mean? Well, you know, I'd hate to get to the middle of the desert or the middle of our marketing time and run out of gas, or run out of prospects, or run out of room to price your property or whatnot. So, by the way I consider any time a seller hires me is that it's employer-employee relationship with me. What that means to me is that if at any time after 30 days, and for any reason, you believe that I'm not doing the job that I told you I was going to do, I'm not, communicating with you like I said I would, I'm not, bringing the activity that I said I would, or any of that, you have the right to fire me since you're going to hire me this evening. Now, with a caveat, that is if we can't work out our differences or our problems, and if I can't come to a resolution with you, then it's like, Mike, you're fired, boom, tear up the listing agreement, you're free to then go on and hire someone else, sell your home on your own, whatever you'd like to do. Does that make sense? Okay, great. By the way, I'll do one other thing for you. If I'm able to sell the home myself, which I do about 20% of the time, if I'm able to do that, and I do that within the first 60 days of having your home on the market, even though it says 6% here, I'll reduce that fee down to 5%. How's that sound? Or you can say, it says 5% here, I'll reduce that fee down to 4%, or however you want, or you don't have to do that at all. But I used to like to do it because knowing that most of the time I'm not going to sell the property myself anyway, but if I do, and I get 5%, that's a whole lot better than 3%, which I would get if it was a 6% listing and I shared it 3-3. So do with that what you may. You may or may not like that idea, but that's something that I used. It helped them feel certainly less resistant and more trusting of me, that here's a guy of his word and he's going to do what he says he's going to do, and we have the right to fire him if he doesn't. So then again, you ask them for their approval on the paperwork, they okay it, and then you say, thank you so much for showing your confidence in me this evening, and I'll do my very best and everything in my power to get your home sold within a reasonable period of time at the highest price possible. Now let's go over a few things that I need to have your help with in order to maximize our results. And that's when you go over helping them stage the property. If you don't know how to do that yourself, hire somebody to do it. But if you do have an idea of it, certainly let them know about having the countertops cleared and the rooms uncluttered and the closets uncluttered. And in fact, I used to tell people, you might as well start packing now because you are going to be moving, and that's a way to unclutter and your home will show better, as well as you'll get a head start on moving, right? And then you must set them up for one other thing for sure. Well, a few other things, but the main thing, set them up for a fast offer, because now you've gotten a listing, it's priced well, and so what you need to let them know is that the active real estate brokers in this area, or agents in this area, are working with anywhere from 3 to 5 buyer prospects at any given moment, and they may be working with somebody right now who's perfect for your home. Now, these may be prospects that have seen everything else on the market. Your home now comes up on the market. Their realtor shows. They love it. And so we may be fortunate enough to get an offer within a couple of days. That would be great, wouldn't it? Set them up for that, because if you don't, and then you do get that offer within a couple of days that's at full price, they will be mad. At least a little bit, because they'll feel like, well, gee, there went 5 or 6% to a guy or a gal that really didn't do anything, or worse yet, or both, and that is that, hey, that son of a gun underpriced our property, so it would sell quickly. We left money on the table. So you got to set them up for the fact that there could be a fast offer. Number 2. Let them know that because there's a lot of activity from signs, there may be a time when a realtor is driving through the area, maybe to show another property, and didn't know your home was for sale yet, but saw the sign. And they may just stop by, knock on the door, and ask if they can show the home. Now, if it's not convenient, or if your home's not ready to show at that moment, go ahead and let them know, hey, it's not really the right time right now. Could you come back in a half an hour, or whatever works for you? But I would try to accommodate them if you can. as soon as possible, because they may have a buyer that's in from out of town. You don't know that maybe that's their only day to look, and your home might be perfect for them. So you got to do everything in your power to let them see your home. So and number two, if you get a buyer that happens to do that same thing and knock on your door without a realtor, do not show them your home. Here's some of my cards, and what I want you to do is to give them one of my cards and say, I'm happy to call my realtor and he'll meet you over here soon to show you the property, or you can give him a call yourself, whichever you prefer. And that way, you don't have people just coming in and that you don't know, and who knows, they could be just casing the joint, right? So so make sure that you hand your seller some of your cards so they can do that. Then also set them up for how to best demonstrate the property, get it ready for a showing. Let them know to have the lights on, the blinds open, some soft music playing, maybe some soft jazz or something like that, not too loud. Let them know that you want to get as many of the senses involved as you can. Have some potpourri or some, something that smells good going on. In fact, what I used to like to have people do, or at least ask them to do, was to bake some cookies. That may be a little much for a lot of people, but here's the benefit of doing that. First of all, the house smells great, fresh baked cookies, and it's not that hard to do if you just get the roll of cookies and put them in the oven, and it's great. The shortcut's vanilla extract, of course, but cookies are better, and the reason that cookies are better is what nicer way to welcome somebody into your home to let them see it and have a plate of cookies out there with a little sign that says fresh cookies, feel free to enjoy. And that'll do a couple of things psychologically for the buyer, and that is they'll remember your home, because maybe they're looking at 5, 10, who knows how many properties that day, but they'll remember your home if your home is the only, and I guarantee you'll be the only home probably that has cookies, unless it's another one of my listings. And they'll let their realtor know, hey, yeah, the cookie home. Even if they don't remember anything else about it, they'll remember that for sure. And so just a little thing, but so set your sellers up for these different eventualities and different ways to have their home show in its best light, and that also let them know so that you can follow up with every showing to collect the cards, because you're going to be calling them, and let them know that you're going to call them every Monday morning like clockwork, and you're going to let them know what's been going on with their property, but you also want them to let you know, in case the realtor that showed it didn't let you know, that it's been shown, so that you can make a phone call and follow up. I used to like to do another little trick, and that was have a little fishbowl in the home and have a drawing for every agent. And this is especially great for properties that are a little overpriced, in case you happen to take one, because there's great motivation there, and you got a long-term listing, 6 months or more, and maybe you had to take it a little bit overpriced. Have this fishbowl and have little comment sheets for the realtor to fill out that includes any comments from the buyer, and have them put in the fishbowl for a drawing. Dinner for two at the coolest restaurant in town, a weekly drawing, and I guarantee that'll make some points, not only with your fellow realtors,